Recently on the internet, someone commented on a picture that I had from a class with some students who were in a great natural, neutral, athletic shooting position designed to work well with what the body does naturally and help them to manage recoil as much as possible in a dynamic critical incident. Their question was, wow, that looks odd. Why are they crouched down? And what we have to remember is that we're not training to target shoot. We're not training to be in the perfect position to control a gun and to control bullets. What we're training to do is to use a gun as well as possible in a fight, and particularly only as well as we need to. So we need to think about what are the types of things we're trying to accomplish with our firearm during the typical defensive shooting situation. Well, we're trying to fire multiple rounds very quickly into an area about the size of the high center chest at a reasonable distance, or the expected distance. Probably between 10 and 15 feet is a really good area to practice in. Now, while the shooting may actually happen much closer in a defensive shooting environment, around your car, inside of your bedroom, inside of your home entrance area, something like that, the reality is that by training at 10 to 15 feet, we're probably going to be shooting at about the same pace that we would at 8 to 10 feet or 7 to 10 feet or whatever the more typical distance would be. So by putting that target about 10 or 15 feet away, we learn to manage recoil, we learn to shoot very quickly if we practice, if we put good fundamentals into practice. But what we really need to start with is ourselves, not worrying so much about where the target is, but worrying what we're doing back here. And that's why you see this crouched position with the body weight forward of the hips. So the indicators that we're looking for a good natural neutral stance start with, what does the human body do when it's startled? Well, we know we lower our center of gravity and we orient towards the source of that threat, towards the source of that sound or that action. So in this position, we are naturally very athletic, we're naturally prepared to move, and we naturally put our weight a little bit forward up on the balls of our feet. What I'm looking for in a shooter on the line is that their knees are bent and that their shoulders are moved forward of their hips. These are really the biggest indicators. Essentially, it's bending the knees and bending at the hip. Bending those two joints allows our weight to go forward. Of course, with our weight forward, we're then able to support the frame of the gun as much as possible to manage recoil. So that if I go straight up and try to minimize the movement of the gun and try to lock my body in this way, and even if I then apply rearward pressure with this hand and lock my shoulder joint in, this is the maximum amount of deviation control I can get. But I'm not just worried about deviation control for a single shot, and this is nowhere near a natural, intuitive position for the human body. This is natural and intuitive, and full extension of both arms is also natural. Full extension of both arms, again, allows me to support the frame as much as possible. If I bend my elbows, my arms are going to allow more movement of the frame, which makes the gun less reliable because we want to hold the frame still against the movement of the slide. Also, it's going to allow more movement or more deviation during recoil. So I'm not trying to absorb the energy of recoil. Quite the opposite. I'm trying to lock out against the energy of recoil so that all of that energy is transferred from the movement of the slide to the internals of the gun, to the recoil spring, get the empty brass out of the way, get the slide back as far as possible, and then allow it to travel forward under the power of that spring, that energy that's now been stored in the compressed spring, to chamber the next round and ready the gun to shoot. That whole time, I want this frame to move as little as possible. So again, my weight is forward at the hip, my arms are fully extended, and that's going to allow me to support the gun as much as possible for a good, rapid, combat-accurate string of fire. I'm not worried about target shooting stance. I'm worried about supporting the gun and working well with what my body does naturally. That's how we should be training to fight. That's how we should be training to defend ourselves. Natural, neutral stance, weight forward at full extension.